I don't know. I've always just kind of like learning, and I've been like, I want to be like that when I'm older. And you do that by experimenting and trying things and learning things. And um, if it doesn't work out, then you learn something, you move on to the next thing, you try it, and
Welcome to the LabVIEW Experiment. I am your host, Sam Taggart from SAS Workshops. In my 15 years of working with and training developers, I've had the opportunity to conduct a lot of experiments. Over here, we believe in embracing failure as the essential learning experience that it is. And what better way to learn than from other people's mistakes? In this podcast, I talk to industry experts, colleagues, and friends about their failures and how they have turned them into future successes. All right, I am here today with Eric Stach, and Eric is joining us from North Carolina.
Mhm.
And you're at Duke.
Yep. Duke University in Durham, North Carolina. And I work in the civil and environmental engineering department.
You recently changed though, right? Because you used to work in a lab type of environment.
Mhm. Yeah, for about 7 years, I worked in mechanical engineering. I worked in the teaching labs, where we were designing and developing teaching lab experiments for undergrad lab classes. So everything from thermodynamics to control systems, fluid dynamics, a lot of variety of stuff. So it was me and a couple other guys. Pat and Evan were the lab tech guys.
Okay, and I understand that that was during COVID when you were working in the lab. How did COVID affect all of that?
Quite a bit. Um, yeah, I remember. So March 2020, everything's sort of shutting down. Um, it wasn't nothing was like in lockdown yet, but everyone's sort of like talking about it, like preparing for this might be a thing. Like the students had all been sent home and we're told not to, the rest of the semester is going to be on remotely on Zoom. So we have, another month of labs. Like we're trying to figure out how to run all these labs. And um, we thought like any day now we would be told, hey, don't report to work from home. So we kind of had to scramble and just like filmed, our lab experiments and just put them on video and had something, sample data sets and stuff that we could send out to the students so that they could do other labs from home. So that was like the end of the spring semester of 2020. And then, fall 2020 and into 2021, like there was like this weird hybrid stuff where like some classes would be remote, some classes would be in person. Um, so we would have like in-person labs where we would like limit the number of people in the lab and we would kind of like space everyone out and just have like a lot more sessions with like less people in them to try to like do distancing and stuff. Some things we would like send out kits for and like make kits and send those home. Some class we would do like the video. In my lab, I had like this like super desk arrangement set up where like everyone had like there was like these 6 foot benches and everyone had like their own monitor and mouse and they were all connected to the same computer so everyone could like work remote, like together but separately. So that was kind of fun. Those super desks were kind of fun, but the whole general COVID experience, no, it wasn't. Um, but it was, yeah, I mean, it was trying to do engineering education remotely is not, it's a challenge. Especially when there's like just so much like hands-on and visual stuff that like it's hard to it's I don't know, it's hard to get some of the same concepts across. And for like design classes when they're trying to like design stuff, they can, do some like CAD and programming stuff remotely. And fortunately, like, 3D printing is a lot more popular these days. So, can find some resources to do that kind of stuff, but it's not the same as the in-person experience.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for being in person, particularly when it comes to learning. Some things
Yeah.
work over Zoom, but yeah, some things definitely don't. Particularly lab stuff where you're trying to deal with hardware.
Yeah, it and especially like for so one of the classes that I spent a lot of my time on is our control systems. And like we use LabVIEW and we used NIDACs in lab, and 50% of our students use Macs.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
so yeah,
Max is in
Duke,
Macintosh. Yeah, not Max is in NI Max.
yeah, Macintosh, Mac OS. Yeah, because Duke doesn't have any. Some schools will have like computing requirements, like you must have Windows. Duke doesn't care. They're just like
Have it.
it doesn't matter. Which I see the rationale behind that, but it also from our end it makes things tough because like you have a lot of programs that'll be Windows only, and you have to find something that's going to be cross-platform, and that will limit things. And for the NI hardware, like NI, DAC MX doesn't run on Macs, and so it was hard to have something for those students to do, and so we had to come up with like other solutions and stuff.
Yeah. And this was before when our Mac moved to ARM too, right? Because that probably complicated things even more.
Yeah, yeah, I think like the M1 chips and stuff came out, and like something didn't run right away, and um it was yeah, I mean fortunately like the links, we ended up getting stuff working with like the links toolkit, and that did run on Mac, so we just had to do kind of like a swap of hardware, and um managed to get things working there.
Really cool.
Yeah.
So is that where you learned how to do C++ and or C and Rust and those things? Is that in the lab or was that after you got out of the lab?
That was after. That's in my current job. Um yeah, we've it's mostly been a lot of C. So at we learned a little bit of like MATLAB in college, and then I never really used it for a while. And then I've mostly been using LabVIEW in my previous job. And in this current job, they have some C-based microcontrollers. So I've had to pick that up, and we were doing we had to do some like Bluetooth stuff, and I was like learning it for the first time. And I was just trying to just learn stuff and figure it out. And at the time, like I really didn't know like much of C or C++. So like when I was getting started, I was like, oh, let me try like Rust. That's like the hot new thing everybody's talking about. And um, I'm learning this entire new paradigm. Let me throw a new programming language in there too. And I fiddled around with a little bit, and it was interesting. Like I see what they're going for. Like it's a very project like application based type of language, and there are a couple things like managing dependencies and like doing builds and stuff that I'm kind of like this makes like I see it, I can follow this. But the language is so verbose, and I was just like look at a script and I would be like my eyes are glazing over. I'm like I can, and of course like I went on, I would go on like Reddit and Stack Exchange, and people are like, you should jump into Rust if you are already like an expert in C or C++. If you jump into it straight, like you're just asking for trouble. And I was like, I had ignored those suggestions, but now I was like, all right, these guys know what they're talking about. So then I decided to back things up, and I was like, I'm going to start with the basics. I'm going to start with some C, and we ended up we've been using like this platform made by like Nordic Semiconductor, and their all stuff is all based in C. So I'm like, all right, this makes more sense. Like we're just going to go with this, and um, it's been interesting to go from LabVIEW to some of the text languages. I feel like it's usually the other way around. People are going from text to LabVIEW.
Yeah, I don't know. I tried to learn Rust and I kind of had your impression that it's like very verbose and there's a lot of syntax and like that's one of the things I like about LabVIEW. Like I don't have to worry about too much about syntax, which is one of the reasons why I happen to like Python because
Mhm.
it also has very little syntax. So although white space means something in Python, which actually I kind of like because it kind of keeps things lined up and works well. But
Yeah, I'm writing a small little like scripting module in Python right now, and that's yeah, it's just like I'll like add something, and all like I'll add like a try exception thing, and it's just like, oh, I have to move everything over and tab it, and um, but yeah, the syntax, I don't know, I don't know, it's nice to not have to worry about that in LabVIEW, just wires.
I feel like both Rust and Python are they're very different, but they also both have some similarities to LabVIEW in the sense that I feel like Rust has like the very strict typing, which is what LabVIEW has.
Mhm.
And Python has the very quick iteration, the very like it feels like a prototyping language, which LabVIEW I think also feels like a prototyping language because it doesn't have all that syntax. You're not like bogged down by it. You can write a lot of code really fast. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's all good code, but it's easy to write code quickly and get something up and running in both languages.
Yeah. Yeah, and like the plugins and like the third party toolkits, and I feel like there's LabVIEW and like I mean obviously Python's like super strong in that, but I feel like LabVIEW, that's it's a similarity between the two.
Yeah, LabVIEW comes with a lot of stuff built in. LabVIEW does have a VIPM, which is useful. Although I feel like it's
Mhm.
not like Python with pip is just like you can pip install anything.
Yeah. Um yeah, that's a super convenient feature. Just like one type in one command and you can get all these packages, and um that's definitely a nice feature.
Yeah, VIPM is a little way to go to catch up to that, but it's getting better. There's a lot more and more stuff
Mhm.
out there every day, so that's good.
Mhm.
Um, so what else have you been learning besides just C and Rust? I've been playing around, as you said, with Bluetooth.
Yeah, we have a project right now where we are um, collecting measurements from a lot of different wireless sensors, like heart rate monitors, wearable accelerometers, and like deployed environmental like temperature sensors and pressure sensors. And it's all getting like aggregated into like one source. So we have like a Bluetooth listener chip that is just aggregating all these different sources and sort of combining it into one like data stream, and then it puts it into a database. Um, and so it's been a lot of like learning like what Bluetooth is, and because we need we need kind of need the bandwidth. Um, it's gonna it's gonna be stuff that's in like pretty short proximity, pretty close proximity. Um, and a lot of the sensors that you could buy off the shelf are already like Bluetooth enabled, and um so just learning about like what Bluetooth is and like how the notification and how like GAT works, and all like the standards, and um we it's definitely been like a big curve, because like if you have like a Bluetooth like dongle or something, like a USB thing, or if your computer has it built in, like it's pretty easy to like subscribe to like Bluetooth notifications, like if you have a device that broadcasts it. Um, so like through like Python or even through like the command line or something, can just like subscribe to notifications if you have a device that's putting out notifications, and you can start reading that data. But anytime you're starting to like do more than one device at a time, it becomes, I don't know how to, like, I spent a lot of time digging through the internet and like couldn't really figure out how to do it. Um, which is what put me onto like this Nordic stuff, which is apparently like they, are probably like one of the top manufacturers of like Bluetooth chips, probably in the world. And they have like their whole like open source real-time operating system where you can, program this and, set it up how you want, and that will just, you can program it to act as an aggregator of all these sources, and like trying to do it like and let the chip handle it all versus trying to do it on like a Windows or like a Linux operating system. It's just like so much easier and just so much more powerful. Um, so just trying to like learn the stuff like that is, it's been really interesting. And yeah, it's a big rabbit hole you can go down into. Um, we're just trying to subscribe just some, read some data and not trying to do anything super complex with it, but it's still be a bit tricky.
Yeah, I always notice that you're always willing to try new things and go. You're you come off as very adventurous, I guess would be the word.
Definitely when it comes to, learning new things in the workplace. And I'm definitely like very I don't know, like I think there's like I see like a lot of like I'll see like a lot of like older like faculty members who've like been around for like 40, 50 years, and you see how they can just like rattle off information about stuff. And I don't know, I've always just kind of like learning, and I've been like I want to be like that when I'm older. And you do that by experimenting and trying things and learning things. And um if it doesn't work out, then you learn something, you move on to the next thing, you try it. And um I think working at a university has been really good. It's very encouraging of that mindset because, we're not selling a product. Like we're not trying to, boost sales, a quarter of a point every quarter. And um, we can really focus on like trying to learn something new, and try to, learn novel stuff. And I'm always just trying to like, I want to be able to like look back like every year and be like, I got better as an engineer like in the last year. And that's something that really like motivates me and drives me. And yeah.
I feel like that's something that academia kind of fosters that we lose out in industry a bit is that like Renaissance man thing of like being somewhat knowledgeable about multiple different areas. And I feel like there's a lot of like bringing ideas from one area into another. I definitely had a professor, he was a control systems engineer or something, but he was really into uh, neurology and stuff and figuring out how the brain works and like kind of translating that over into control systems and stuff. And he was into all kinds of other stuff too. And I thought that was really useful because I feel like where you work really has a huge impact on your kind of outlook and like how willing you are to try new things and experiment. And oftentimes, if you're in industry, like you said, when I worked at Westinghouse, I was in the R&D department, but I worked with people in various products, and like all they worked on was that same product. They weren't allowed to try anything new. They weren't allowed to like innovate or do anything else. It's just like keep churning out the same product, and you get stuck in this like incremental delivery thing. Like, oh, we'll add this tiny little feature, but you're not really learning new things or trying anything really radical.
Yeah, that can be like really frustrating. Like I think I definitely learned that like the that's the kind of environment where I feel like I would like love to not be. Um, and also in academia, like, going back to, the professor, it's like being interdisciplinary is just like very encouraged. And you're thinking about like, oh, how can we connect this? If you're in mechanical engineering, like how can we connect this with like biomedical? And, I would see this in mechanical engineering, like half our senior design projects probably could have been biomedical engineering projects because they were something that were related to, the human body. And you gotta, you'll learn something new about like physiology or anatomy if you were to work on that project. And a chance to like learn something new and fun. And even if you don't, directly, profit from it, like it's still fun to learn.
Yeah, no, I definitely like learning new things. That's one thing I've always appreciated about you is the trying new things and learning new things. Particularly, it comes out in your GDevCon NA presentations, which have been quite excellent. Actually, I like them. Your
Thank you.
enthusiasm and your like willingness to think outside the box and try new things, I think is very interesting. And it's kind of refreshing actually to go and see some of those presentations at GDevCon because I feel like we try to get variety, but we always end up with a lot. Like from year to year, there's a lot of presentations that are kind of similar. Like, oh, here's the best practice on how to do X, Y, Z in LabVIEW, and they just kind of. It's good to see something that's outside the mold.
Thank you. Yeah, I've had a blast up there. Doing those presentations. And I was actually joking. I try to put a lot of like energy in the presentations, but otherwise, like I'm a pretty like reserved, quiet person. And actually, my mom, I sent the presentation to my mom, and she was like, "Eric, why aren't you like this more often?" um, and I was like, oh, I gotta assume my presentation mode. And no, yeah, I had a blast in this presentation. Like I hope people get, stuff out of them. I think someone I saw on the Discord was like, oh, I was just about to start a project with, HTTP. This is going to be super helpful. And yeah, you're never sure how many chances you'll get to do something like that. So I try to like just make the most of it.
Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, I definitely I've known you for a while through the LabVIEW mastermind group, and
Mhm.
yeah, it's definitely been interesting watching you grow and change over the years. Uh, Definitely, I can see a lot of like light bulb moments, I guess, and like seeing like like connecting the dots and picking things up. And I've also, yeah, definitely the self-confidence thing. Watching you get up there was really great.
Yeah, the mastermind group has been like, I don't know, it's just been like a great development thing for me, and just trying to be around people who've like been there and done that, which is something like I didn't really have. I've never really had like I've had professional mentors and stuff, and I've had people who I could look up to just in like a general engineering sense, but kind of like from a lab view or like a software engineering, like um, that group definitely is like helped do that for me. And I mean, countless things that I can think of in the last couple years that are, originated from some conversation or just some being part of that group. And yeah, it's been awesome.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting stuff that's grown out of that group. I think Casey, a lot of his Zaya tools and stuff, I think he first showed them in the group and we got a bunch of feedback, and yeah, that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of being involved and being part of the community, you've been doing some stuff with the GIDea exchange lately. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. So yeah, I joined as part of the GID Exchange Committee about a year ago. And we are trying to right now promote some growth of some third-party open source tools in the LabVIEW community. And we have a page on the LabVIEW Discord. We have a forum on the NI forums, and the idea is to encourage some growth of some third-party open source toolkits that can be used by all the LabVIEW community. And we are in the process of trying to put together a mob programming session on some toolkits and try to get some folks together and do some work on some toolkits. Um, Trying to make it a regular thing. And yeah, so that's something, I don't know when, this will come out, but that'll be something to be on the lookout for if anyone out there is interested in contributing or if they have an idea. We help sponsor help grow ideas, look for developers and contributors for ideas. So if any, and this would be anything that would be sort of like an add-on. So nothing that would be baked into the LabVIEW release, but something that could be installed like as a toolkit on VAPM, um, or something that you just want to put on GitHub. But if you have an idea, post it on the forums, post it on the Discord, um, and or if you want to contribute to an idea, we can help let you know when one of these mob sessions are happening.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited for this. This is something I've been wanting to see happen for a while. So I'm glad that people have finally picked up on it, and
Yeah.
it's gonna happen. So the couple practice sessions or whatever that we want to call it that we did were quite fun.
Yeah. It was just like, in a session like that, like obviously like one of the main benefits is obviously you get to solve a problem with like, however many people you have working on at one time. And you get to see how other people approach the ID and how other people talk about LabVIEW and like explain how to do something in LabVIEW. Um, because we all have, our different ways of explaining, something. And you pick up like different tips and stuff there. And I mean, I am we had a user group thing, and we did a mob programming session a couple weeks ago, and people seemed to get a lot out of that. And we had like varying levels of experience in the room, um, and I'm thinking about I'm probably going to do some mob programming for some development work we have coming up with some new guys in my group here in a couple weeks.
Cool. So you mentioned user group. Is that the one that you started with Katya?
Mhm. Yeah, so we've had probably 4 meetings in the last year. We've been kind of on like an every other month schedule, but we started up we've called it the Duke University Triangle LabVIEW user group. Um, most all of our meetings at this point have been at Duke. Most of the folks are associated with Duke. But we got Katya, who's also based in Durham. We got a couple folks who are also based in Durham to come to our last meeting. Pretty small group, probably about 7 people, 5, 7 people on average. But we've been trying to have regular meetings and get together just to try to keep momentum going. And the NI was kind enough. Eli was nice enough to buy some lunch for one of our meetings, and yeah, we've yeah, have probably another meeting. I think the next one will be in October, and then we might have like an end of year just get together and have beers or something in December. Just a real casual thing. But yeah, just trying to, get, my I think there was a user group in Durham like way back in the day, but I don't think they meet anymore. There's like a reoccurring meetup group, LabVIEW user group thing, but I've tried to, I messaged, nobody's ever responded. Someone else said they never responded. So I think it's just set to run forever. And I don't think anyone's ever actually associated with it. So we just decided to start our own new one. And yeah, just trying to, bring, all the people together in the area and just talk about LabVIEW and see if we can share some knowledge. And I also kind of wanted to have a group that would being at a university, I know that there are like so many like maybe like postdocs or grad students or whoever who are like, oh, I need to use LabVIEW for this project, but I don't know LabVIEW and I have no support structures for LabVIEW, and I'm also hoping this group can kind of be something that they know about and can come and feel free and ask questions, and um, that can be sort of a resource for them. So that's my vision, at least the group can do some of that as well.
No, yeah, that's really great. Yeah, we have a user group here in Denver. It's decent size, but yeah, since COVID, it's kind of fallen apart a little bit. But there is a core group of us that get together regularly for coffee, and it's good to keep that up. And there definitely is something to being in person, like the energy and just like seeing people in person. I mean, I do a lot of stuff remote and it works for a lot of things, but there definitely is something nice about being in person.
Yeah, it's I mean, I would say the one benefit is you can just roll out of bed and you're right there, you're in the meeting. But otherwise, I don't know, yeah, it's not the same. I think we talked about this, like presentations, like if people have their videos off or something, like you can't really read the room, and you're just talking to a black box, and that can be hard. And um, uh, I don't know, depending on where you are, like if I'm at home or if I mean, I don't do this, but like if I was in public or something, just like I feel like there's so many more chances for distractions and stuff, even just on your computer. And
Yeah.
um, there's a lot of opportunity to, check a notification and then someone asks a question, you're like, wait, what?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of that. I just remember when I used to teach for NI, I would teach LabVIEW Core 1 and 2 virtually, and
Hmm.
people would leave their videos off, and I'd be there for like 8 hours a day with no video, and it was just horrible. Like I'd be talking and like nobody ever responded. I'd ask a question, I'd sit there and wait for a few minutes until someone finally responded. And there's always like the same one person, so it's like
Yeah. Well, that'd be so like you're kind of questioning like, are they really there?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't be surprised if at some point they all just like walked off to lunch or something.
No.
Yeah, it was not a great experience as the teacher. So I don't know. I hear NI is reinvesting in training centers, so hopefully that'll get a little bit better.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about, I ask everybody a question. Tell me a
Mhm.
time that you tried an experiment, which it sounds like you got lots of them. Do you have one in particular that you'd like to pick and that you could talk a little bit about what you learned?
Yeah. So the one that comes to mind is so it was during COVID. Um, there was this big push to sort of do everything online. I mean, obviously we had to. Nobody come to nobody could come to their classes in person. We had to do everything online. Um, and one of the main classes that I worked with was our control systems class, and we used LabVIEW. We had NIDAX, and we would have this like cool equipment that you would get to control and kind of put your hands on in the lab. And um, uh, there were a lot of um, for a lot of like electronics labs, like everyone was kind of doing a kit, and they were doing like a take home kit, and just getting these like $20 like Arduino stuff from Amazon or whatever, and um sending it home. And I was like, well, I want to try to um I want to try to use the stuff that we have and see if I can still, get them to use the fancy equipment and the cool stuff. And let's see if we can find a way to like make this work remotely. So I kind of hatched this idea. And also in that way I wouldn't have to significantly rewrite my lab handouts and my procedures. So there was also that aspect of it too. Um, so I hatched this idea of like, well, we can have them remote connect into the machines, and we can put like webcams at everything. And everything's connected to the DAC. So, to the DAC that they can control if they control it remotely through the remote desktop. And so I'm like, oh, so that's cool. So they can see everything through the video. They can like change the sliders and stuff, and they can see the motor spin, and they can see everything move through the webcam. Like, all right, this is great. It's they're not here, but like it's the next best thing. And I remember we had this lab, which one of my favorite labs, where they do it's like a PID control of a turntable. And so there's like audio to it, 'cause it's like an actual record player, so they could hear the music. And I was like, oh, well, we'll put some they'll be able to hear the audio through the computer, and if you link everything through. And so I had all these like stations set up, and then we start running the lab, and everything seems to go pretty smooth. And then I didn't consider that there would be like feedback on all the mics.
Oh,
So everyone's like, oh, like I keep getting like all the ringing and the feedback. And then like the computer like would crash, like the remote desktop thing would crash the computer. So like I would have a computer crash and have another computer crash, and I have to go set everything back up and like reset the hardware. And um I credit the students. Like they were very patient. And I mean, they were also remotely, I couldn't like hear what they were saying on the other end of their computer. But so that, but everyone was always like, oh, I appreciate it. Thanks for, helping out and fixing this and everything. And they were very, very nice about it. I'm sure they signed off and were like, that lab was terrible. Um, but yeah, it just, and like I think at one point, like I did, like we had like 4 sessions. I think I did one before I just called it, and I was just like, we're just gonna do videos here. Like this is my coworker walked in like as things were melting down. He's like, he's like, so how's it going? And I was just like, I don't want to talk about it. It was kind of a disaster. So the next semester I ended up retooling everything to work around a kit, which I still use LabVIEW for it. I ended up using like the Lynx toolkit with Arduinos and stuff. So it was in the end I should have just done that in the first place, but um learned a little bit there. And Um, you know, my big well, I actually had like a couple tips. My one takeaway was before you start, if you're going to take a shortcut, which we all do, we all take shortcuts, it's fine. You know, think about what's going to go wrong and if the consequences are worth it. Um, and yeah, I got to learn a little bit about the Links toolkit, and it actually, like, for some reason it wouldn't. It's like about half our students have Macs
Oh yeah.
and Mac OS, and like for some reason, like I couldn't get the VIPM package. Like VIPM kept crashing on a Mac, so but it would the software would really, like, the toolkit would run. So I ended up having to like write some bash script, and like I had never done bash scripting before, so I had to like learn how to do that to like get it to load and be put into VILib and everything. And I was like, all right, well, I learned a little about bash scripting, so that was cool. Um, so that was a nice trade-off from my experience.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that embodies that, like, figure out how to
Hmm.
get it done, even if it's not pretty, it works.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually like bash scripting. I'm a fan, but it is kind of arcane. So there's definitely some like, really, why did they think this was a good idea to make it do this way? So,
But
but
it's a handy tool to have. Like it's definitely a useful thing to know. Um, because sometimes I'll like work on something and I'll be like, does this really need to be in like C or something, or can I just do this in like Bash?
yeah, no, definitely if you can move files or if you're just like moving files around or doing like simple things, Bash definitely has its use case. I use
Mhm.
it a lot for CI/CD stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, because it runs headless and it's like already installed. I don't have to install Python or anything. So
Mhm.
all right, very good. Well, thank you very much.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
All right, cool. Thank you. That's it for today's episode of the LabVIEW Experiment. Thanks for listening. If you have any comments or questions, head over to thelabviewexperiment.com and drop me a note. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at the LV Experiment.